The arrival on Velari Prime. Mark stepped off the silver shuttle and felt the strange wind of Velari Prime touch his face. The air was warm and soft, with a faint glow that came not from the sun, but from the trees. Each tree had blue and purple lights dancing along its bark, like tiny stars living in wood. It was nothing like Earth. Mark was Earth's first visitor to this alien planet. He wasn't a soldier or a diplomat. He was a young scientist, curious, nervous, and completely unprepared for what was waiting. He had trained for months, studied the Velari people, and read every known fact. But all the reports were limited. The Velari were private, quiet, and rarely shared details. One thing he did know. Mating season was about to begin, and humans were never allowed during this sacred time. Yet this year, everything changed. The Galactic Council had sent a request. The Velari had chosen a human-only one, and it was Mark. No one knew why. As he walked toward the towering white structure ahead, he could feel eyes on him. Slender figures stood on balconies and in doorways. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. None of them spoke. They only watched. A soft voice spoke beside him. "Please follow." He turned. A tall Velari woman stood there. Her skin shimmered with soft silver lines. Her hair floated behind her as if the air was underwater. She wore no armor, no weapon, only a long robe that barely touched her feet. "I'm honored to be here," Mark said, his voice shaking a little. She didn't respond with words. Instead, she turned and walked ahead. Mark followed in silence. Heart-pounding. They entered the main hall. The floor was smooth like glass, but warm underfoot. Lights pulsed in patterns beneath his steps. Around him, the Velari stood in complete silence. No whispering, no movement. Only their eyes followed him. In the center of the hall was a circle, a wide, glowing ring with ancient symbols. The woman stepped into it and looked back. "This is the circle of choosing," she said. "Here, you accept or deny." "Accept what?" Mark asked carefully. "The right." Mark swallowed. "What does the right mean?" She tilted her head. "Trust, intimacy, bonding. It is our sacred season. Our bodies call for it. Our minds must agree. We chose you." Mark was stunned. He had heard stories. The Velari were not aggressive, but they were deeply instinctual during mating season. Some believed they shared thoughts, emotions, maybe even souls during the rite. "Why me?" he asked. "You are compatible," she said simply. "You passed all tests without knowing." He looked around. Hundreds of glowing eyes watched him. The silence was heavier now, pressing into his chest. "If I refuse, you may leave," she said calmly. "But the bond will break, and the opportunity will be lost. Forever." Mark stared at the glowing circle beneath his feet. A strange warmth rose from it, not heat emotion. He could feel it. Something in his chest stirred, like a quiet voice, whispering not from outside, but from inside his own mind. And that voice was not his. "We will not force you," she added. "But know this, our season lasts only one cycle. If no bond is formed, we may not survive." His breath caught. "You mean your people?" "Yes." Mark took a deep breath. He had come here as a scientist, but now he was part of something much bigger. He looked into her glowing eyes and nodded slowly. "I accept." The moment he said it, the lights in the hall changed. Soft music, alien and beautiful, filled the air. The Velari bowed their heads. A doorway opened behind the circle. The woman stepped forward. "Come, the rite begins." As he walked with her, she spoke quietly. "You must remove your outer layer. Clothing is not part of the rite. It hides the truth." Mark hesitated. "Now?" She nodded gently. Here, skin speaks truth. Nothing else matters. He could feel his heart beating faster, not from fear, but from something deeper. Something awakening Dot as he stepped through the doorway into the glowing forest. He whispered to himself, "What have I just agreed to?" Behind him, the doors closed. Ahead of him, the sacred forest pulsed with life. The rite had begun. Asterisk, their eyes watched me. Mark walked deeper into the glowing forest, feeling like every leaf was watching him. The trees were tall, smooth, and lit from within. Strange flowers opened as he passed, releasing soft golden light and a sweet, unfamiliar scent. The silence was deep. No birds, no insects. Just breath, heartbeat, and soft footsteps on the moss-like ground. The Velari woman walked beside him. She had not told him her name yet. She moved like she was part of the forest itself, flowing between shadows and light. "Where are we going?" Mark asked quietly. "To the inner grove," she said. "That is where the rite takes place." He nodded, but his hands were cold. His robe, thin and simple, barely covered him. He could feel the soft night air touch his skin. It was strange, but not uncomfortable. Just different. Suddenly, he noticed. Others, Velari females, stood among the trees. Dozens, their eyes glowing, hair flowing behind them like mist. None of them spoke. None moved. They only watched him. Mark stopped walking. He felt exposed. Their gaze was not hungry, but it was intense, like they were studying every part of him. Not his body, but something deeper. One of them stepped forward. Her skin was soft gold, her eyes deep green. She came too close, and looked into his eyes. "This one is honest," she said softly, not to Mark, but to the guide beside him. The guide nodded. Yes, that is why he was chosen. Another woman appeared. Then another. Now there were at least 20. Mark stood still, heart racing, surrounded by glowing, silent watchers. Is this part of the rite?" he asked. "Yes," the guide said. "They will test your presence. Not with words, not with pain, with silence. With closeness." Mark took a deep breath. He stood tall, arms by his side, trying not to shake. One of the Velari reached out and touched his chest with her fingers. It was soft, almost like a question. She pulled back. "He does not hide fear. He carries it openly." "That is good," she said. Mark blinked. "Wait, you want me to be afraid?" "Only fools feel nothing," said another. "Fear is honest." One by one, the women stepped forward. They didn't touch him again, but they circled him, walked around him, watched him, and they stepped back into the forest and vanished like mist. Mark stood in the quiet. The guide finally spoke. "You are accepted." He let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "But that was only the first step," she added. "What's next?" He asked. "We begin the deep bonding. You must share your past." Mark frowned. "Like, tell you my story?" "No," she said, walking again. "You will show us, with your thoughts, your truth." "All of it?" He followed her into a grove, with a single large crystal growing out of the ground. It glowed pale blue. "This is the stone of memory," she said. "Place your hand here." He hesitated. "What will it do?" "It will reveal who you are, not just to us, but to you." Mark slowly placed his hand on the crystal dot. It flashed blinding white light. Suddenly, he wasn't in the forest anymore. He was home. He stood in his childhood bedroom on Earth, his parents arguing in the other room, his young self crying under the covers. Then his first science prize. Then his failed relationship. The girl who walked away when he said he was leaving Earth. Then the shuttle, the stars. And now, here, he turned and saw them. Velari watchers, not standing in the forest. In his memories, Watching his truth unfold, Mark gasped as the light faded and he fell back onto the moss. The guide caught him. You hid nothing, she whispered. Even your shame, even your pain. Mark looked up, eyes wide. You saw everything? She nodded. Double quotes. And now you are part of us. Suddenly, there was movement behind the trees. More Velari came into the grove, but now they were not silent. They sang, a low, haunting sound like wind through glass. Beautiful and strange. They accept you, the guide said. You may now learn my name. I am Ela. Mark sat up slowly. This was no longer a mission. It was a transformation. Asterisk. Chosen for the sacred trial, Mark woke to the sound of soft bells. The forest sky above him was now dark violet, filled with floating lights that weren't stars. They moved slowly, like glowing seeds carried by wind. He sat up. Ela was standing nearby, watching him. You slept through the night, she said. That means the bond has started. Mark rubbed his eyes. Bond? Yes, the crystal has linked your mind to ours. But now comes the sacred trial. It will show if the connection is strong enough to survive the rite. He stood slowly, still feeling the echo of his memories. What kind of trial? Ela walked toward a narrow path, lit by soft blue stones on the ground. You will enter the dream chamber, she said. There, you'll face not enemies, but yourself. Mark followed her, nervous but curious. The path led to a circular chamber carved from a giant stone, covered in symbols that glowed faintly. It had no door, just an opening, like the mouth of a cave. Inside, the air felt thick, heavy, like he was underwater. At the center was a flat stone platform. Ela gestured for him to lie down. Mark hesitated. Will it hurt? No, she said, but it may change you forever. He lay down. Ela placed a silver band around his forehead. When the dream begins, do not run. Do not lie. Just face what you see. He nodded. The moment her hand touched the stone, everything vanished. Inside the trial, Mark found himself standing in a burned city. Earth. Smoke rose from broken towers. The sky was red. He could hear crying, but no people. Just the sound of loss. He turned and saw her. Ela. But not in her alien form. She looked human now, wearing a robe. Her eyes were sad. This is your greatest fear, she said. Losing your home. Being the last. Mark looked around. Why show me this? Because your bond cannot be with us if your heart is still trapped in a broken past. Mark walked forward, confused. As he passed a mirror on a broken wall, he saw himself older, tired, alone. He touched the mirror. Cracked. And suddenly, the world around him shattered. Now he was back in his lab, on Earth. His old partner stood in front of him. Lena. You left everything behind, she said. For what? For aliens who don't even love the same way. He tried to speak, but no words came. Then Ela appeared again, her alien form this time, glowing softly. Watching. You carry guilt, she said. You think loving us means betraying them. Mark dropped to his knees. I don't know what I want anymore, he said. I was just a scientist. I didn't ask for this. She knelt beside him. But you were chosen for a reason, she said softly. And you are not alone. Her touch warmed his skin. The world around him melted again. Back in the grove, Mark gasped and opened his eyes. He was back on the stone bed. Ela stood over him, hand resting gently on his shoulder. You faced your fear, she said. That is the hardest part of the rite. He sat up slowly. Sweat covered his body, but his heart felt lighter. Did I pass? He asked. You did. More than pass, Ela said, with a quiet smile. You accepted your truth. That makes you ready for the next step. Mark stood. Around them, Velari figures appeared silent, watching. But this time, they bowed. "You are now one with the right," she said, "and you are no longer just a visitor." Mark looked around. For the first time, he didn't feel like a guest. He felt chosen, but deep in the shadows, someone else. Watched, someone who did not want the right to succeed. Asterisk, the bond beyond flesh. Mark stood beside Ela, as the morning light of Valerie Prime filtered through the glowing trees. The trial had changed him. He could still feel the emotions he faced in the dream, his fear, his past. But something else had taken root inside him now. A strange peace, a connection he could not explain got around him. The Velari stood, in complete silence, dozens of them. Their eyes glowed faintly. No one spoke, but Mark could feel their approval. They had seen his truth. They had accepted it. Isla stepped forward. She raised her hand and touched Mark's chest. "Now," she said gently, "we begin the final bond." Mark looked into her glowing silver eyes. "I thought that was what already happened." "No," she said softly. "That was only your truth. Now we must share ours." She turned and walked toward a tall arch made of living vines and light. Mark followed without hesitation. As they passed through, he felt a soft hum in the air, like something alive was watching him, but it wasn't dangerous. It was Ancient Dot. The chamber they entered was unlike anything Mark had seen. The walls shimmered like water. In the center was a floating crystal, slowly turning in the air. "This is the Heartstone," Isla whispered. "It holds the memories of all bonded Velari. It holds our pain, our love, our failures." Mark stepped closer. The crystal pulsed as he neared. "You want me to touch it?" Isla nodded. "If your bond with me is true, it will open. If not, it will reject you." Mark swallowed. His hands trembled slightly as he reached out. The moment his fingers touched the crystal, it shattered into glowing pieces. Not broken, Dot absorbed. Dot the light flowed into his chest, into his mind, into every part of him. He fell to his knees as images rushed into his thoughts. He saw children dying. He saw Velari cities burned. He saw warriors falling, and stars going dark. He saw Isla crying, fighting, hoping. He saw that the Velari were not just mating for pleasure. They were trying to survive. Their species was fading. They had tried to bond with others. None succeeded. None survived, except Mark. He gasped as the vision ended. He looked at Isla, now standing in front of him with her hand on her heart. "You understand now," she said quietly. "We don't bond for desire. We bond for life, for survival." Mark stood slowly. "You needed a connection, strong enough to merge with other minds," he said. "A mind that can survive your emotions." She nodded. "Yes. And you are the only one who did not break." Mark was silent for a moment. Then he stepped forward and reached for her hand. "I don't know where this leads," he said, "but I'm not walking away." Ela smiled, not just with her mouth, but with her eyes, with her soul. "The rite is complete," she whispered. But just as peace settled in the room, the chamber trembled. A loud sound echoed from above metal, striking metal. Mark and Ela turned toward the entrance. A warrior burst through, his robe torn, blood on his arm. "Enemies," he gasped. "They've landed. They know the rite is complete, and they want to stop it." Mark's eyes narrowed. "Who are they?" Ela's face hardened. "Those who fear what our bond means. If we survive, they lose control." The peace was over. Now came war. Asterisk. Mating season turns to war. The peaceful glow of the bonding chamber vanished in a flash of red light. Alarm pulses echoed through the forest like a heartbeat speeding up. Velari warriors rushed past the archways with quiet urgency, no shouting. No chaos, just smooth, deadly purpose. Mark stood frozen. "Who attacked us?" Isla's voice was sharp but calm. They call themselves the Gorok Syndicate. They fear what the right creates humans bonded to Valari. They want us divided, weak. Mark clenched his fists. But we're not soldiers. Isla turned to him, her eyes fierce. We are now. She moved quickly, pulling open a hidden wall. Inside was a room lined with sleek silver weapons and shimmering armor crafted not for war, but for defense of tradition. Ela reached for a narrow blade that glowed when she held it. You will not be left behind, she said. Your presence proves the bond works. That makes you their main target. Mark didn't hesitate. Then I fight. At the forests. Edge the forest was burning. Dropships had landed in the distance, dark, spiked ships built for speed and terror. The Gorok's warriors stormed through the trees like black shadows. Their armor cracked the forest floor beneath them. Their weapons roared with heat, but the Valari were waiting. With no armor, no heavy weapons, only light, speed, and strange pulse blades that hummed with thought energy. Isla led the front line, and Mark stood beside her Dot as the enemy charged. Mark saw one of them spout him tall, with deep red armor and glowing green eyes. That's him, the Gorok's warrior shouted. The bonded human, take him. Mark raised a pulse rifle handed to him by Isla. It felt strange. It connected to his nervous system, reading his fear and focus. He fired. The first blast hit the Gorok soldier square in the chest. The second dropped another. But there were too many. Isla called out. Fall back, toward the soul root tree. They ran, moving between glowing trees and tall roots. Mark's breath burned in his chest, but he kept moving. Then he saw it. The soul root. Tree massive, ancient, glowing from within. Its branches reached the sky. This was the true heart of Valari Prime. The Valari forces regrouped there. Their numbers were few. The enemy outnumbered them 4-1. Mark turned to Isla. We can't hold this. We need help. Ila's eyes narrowed. Help is not coming. The council refused to interfere. Mark looked around. Then he saw the Heartstone shards still glowing. In his chest an idea formed. What if they could feel what I felt? Isla stared. You want to share your bond? With all of them, Mark said. If I let them feel what I did, your pain, your hope, they'll fight harder. Ela nodded once. It's risky. You might lose yourself. I already gave myself to the right, he said. This is just the next step. The shared mind. Mark placed his hand on the soul root tree. It lit up like a storm. A wave of light blasted out, touching every Valari on the battlefield. Their eyes widened. Their posture shifted. They felt it, his truth, his sacrifice, his bond. And they rose. Even those wounded stood back up. Even those afraid moved forward. Because now, they weren't just fighting for Valari. They were fighting for them. For Mark, for the bond, the turning. Point with sudden speed, the Valari forces charged. They moved like light itself, silent, sharp, precise. The Goroks were caught off guard. Mark fought beside them, blasting, dodging, shouting. He was no longer a visitor, no longer an outsider. He was bonded. He was warrior. Ela fought like a storm beside him. Her blade danced through the air, her movements glowing with power. Soon, the enemy ships were retreating, smoke rising into the sky. One final shot hit the ground near Mark. He flew backward, crashing hard into the soil. Ayla ran to him. Blood touched his lips. I'm still here, he whispered. Ayla held him close. You're not alone. The sky cleared. And the forest breathed again. Asterisk, the only human they'll ever trust. Mark woke to soft light glowing through leaves above him. He was lying in a bed made of woven roots and moss, wrapped in a robe of golden silk. The pain was gone. His chest rose and fell slowly. The battle was over. Beside him, Isla sat with her eyes closed, Her hand resting over his dot, she opened them the moment he stirred. "You returned," she whispered. "I never left," Mark said weakly. "You were between worlds for a while," Ela said, "between thought and silence. But your bond pulled you back." Mark sat up slowly. He saw other Velari nearby, tending to the wounded, singing songs that echoed with soft energy. The soul-root tree stood tall in the distance, now glowing stronger than ever. "We won?" Mark asked. Ela nodded. "Yes, because of you. When you shared your truth with us, it gave us the strength to rise." Mark looked at the warriors moving through the forest. Some bowed to him, some simply smiled. But all of them respected him now, not as an outsider, but as one of their own. A new beginning later that evening, the Velari gathered under the soul-root tree. A great flame burned. At the center, not of fire, but of memory light rising from the ground in glowing waves. The entire forest shimmered with life. Ela stood before the gathered crowd. She raised her voice, not loud, but powerful. "This cycle was supposed to end us," she said. "But instead, it rebirthed us. Our bond with the human did not destroy us. It saved us." Mark stepped beside her. His presence alone quieted the grove. "You trusted me," he said, "when I didn't even understand what I was becoming. You let me into your truth. Now I offer mine in return. Let this be more than one rite. Let it be the first of many." A soft murmur of agreement moved through the crowd. Then applause, not of hands, but of glowing lights from their palms. A Velari way of celebration got the message to Earth 3 days later. A communication pod floated into orbit. Mark recorded a message for Earth Command. His voice was steady. "This is Mark Halen. Mission complete, but I will not return. Velari Prime is no longer a study. It is home. Their people are our future. I am bonded, not only to one of them, but to all of them." He paused, then added, "If we're wise, we won't just visit their world. We'll learn from it." He sent the message and turned away. Legacy of the right time. Past Mark became a symbol across the stars. The first human ever chosen for the Velari rite. Other humans were eventually invited. Other Velari opened their hearts. But none ever forgot. The first bond, Ela and Mark remained together, not just as mates, but as leaders of a new path. Children of two worlds played under the glowing trees. Peace spread, not through war, but through understanding. Final words at the edge of the forest. Years later, a young Velari child looked up at Mark and asked, "Is it true? You were the first?" Mark smiled, kneeling down. "Yes, but I won't be the last." The stars above blinked gently. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the forest, the soul-root tree whispered, "Trust began with one.